Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Planet Apocalypse, and I'm going to go into a short kind of playthrough, how to play, sequencing of a few turns, and then I'm going to follow that up with my final thoughts, my review, timestamps down below in case you want to skip to anything. And from there, let's go into my playthrough. So this is basically a quick overview of how to play Planet Apocalypse. Now, I'm not going for in-depth rules, I'm going more for feel and turn sequencing, so if you're looking for an actual rules overview, there are a bunch of other channels. I believe the Dice Tower put out an excellent full 45-minute rules video. This is going to be a quick sequencing of how a game plays out. Now basically you're going to be going through a few cycles of trying to manage the demons on the board, these guys and whatnot, until eventually you can get strong enough to defeat this final lord. That's basically the sequence of play. It's level up, fight demons, level up, fight demons, going through that sequence of more demons spawn and you level up and get more powerful until you can fight the lord. Now in this game, the sequencing each round, at first you're going to go, let me see if I can show this over here, you're going to go, I don't know if I'll focus, but nope, not really. You're going to go focus, you're going to go through the team phase first, then you're going to go through the hero phase where you take your actions, and finally the enemy phase where, well, everything bad happens. And to begin that off, you're going to start with the team phase where you're going to choose the new captain for the round, which is a semantic thing but can matter for breaking ties and decisions and whatnot. Then you're going to go into the team action phase where you can recruit. So over here, as long as you are in your central home area, you can start recruiting these, and these cards are effectively your towers. If this is a tower defense game, these cards are going to be the various things you're going to be taking so that you can potentially, hopefully, level up and put different things in these spaces. So I'm going to roll the die, and each player is going to do that, and I'm pretty lucky. I actually got a 4 over here, which is as high as you can get on this die. I'm also going to choose to spend 1 courage from my board over here. I'm going to spend 1 courage to bump that up to a 5 so I can take the Special Forces. The Special Forces is the best card in terms of this row of 5 cards, and because I got a 4, I'm going to spend that courage to level up the die to turn this into a 5, and now I'm going to be walking with that Special Forces. So right now it's on patrol with me. Hopefully I will go and drop it off somewhere, but for right now I have it. Then I can spend courage to buy gifts up on that track. It's the beginning of the game, so I don't have enough courage to do so. In fact, technically I don't think I had courage to do this die either, but I'm just going through the sequencing. But in general, when you buy a gift, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking one of these cards, and you're going to be spending your courage on these cards, as well as your courage on the spots on your player board, putting it down on your player board, and effectively locking in 2 upgrades at once. Both whatever the card does, as well as whatever you covered over here. And we'll come back to that shortly, because right now I'm just going to go through the first round, and we'll go through a round or 2 very quickly, and go from there. Then from there, the last thing you can do is you can try to, well, there's 2 more things you can do, but the main other thing you'll be doing is first aid, where you can heal yourself, and you'd have to pay a courage to do so. You can heal yourself or a teammate with you, and you have to pay a courage to do so if enemies are present. From there we go to the hero phase where we start taking actions, and so I'm going to go ahead and take the actions, and the specific things in the hero phase are you can do 3 things in any order. You can set an ambush, which is taking your forces that you created and putting them down somewhere. You can attack, paying a courage to help, to have a teammate help you, or you can move 1 or 2 areas. And you can't do both, so you can't move, and attack. You can do 1 of each of those things. So I'm going to go ahead and move. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to choose to move 1 area. And because we have one of these tokens over here, I'm going to reveal whatever demon horde is present. And to do that, I'm going to take the current dice from the current demon pool and roll them. And we got a match. So what that means is you're going to match up any matches you get on those dice, like so, and then these ones are not a match, so we can ignore them. So this is going to generate 1 lower level demon, as well as a first level demon, as well as every time you generate a match, you're going to generate effectively a grunt. So I have these 2 on the board over here, and these are the 2 guys that we're going to have to basically, well, take care of, destroy, or whatnot. And from there, we're going to go ahead, so that's our move. Then we're going to go ahead and attack. And when we attack, what we're going to do is we're going to roll our dice. In this case, I have a single d6. So I'm going to roll that d6 over here, and it's going to be a 3. Now this guy has a defense of 3, this guy has a defense of 1. And this is not a game where a meeting is good enough. You have to exceed in order to actually win. And so we're not going to win against that guy, unfortunately. What we're going to do is we're going to use our attack to hit this guy over here, killing him, and gaining 1 courage as a result. Now the problem here is normally in here, normally what goes on over here is I would not be able to move again, and so at this point we're going to move to the demon phase, and obviously this will play out differently in more players, and even if you're playing solo, I would recommend controlling at least 2 characters. It gives you a lot more flexibility in managing things, but nonetheless we're just going through the sequencing here, which means we're going to move to the enemy phase, where the first thing we're going to do is we're going to advance onto the spirit track over there. That's effectively, I'm not going to go too heavily into it, but that's effectively an upgrading system where things will get more powerful in the game to match match the fact that you're leveling up. What's going to happen is every time the despair track cycles, you're going to add a die to the available dice so that you're rolling more of these demon generating dice, which results in more matches. From there, we're going to go to the minions attack, which we're going to take this guy, and this guy over here is a Grillis. So what he's going to do is he has a defensive 3 like I mentioned already, and he's going to roll 1d10 against us, which is not good. We're probably going to take a wound. We're going to roll, this is the d10, yes, we're going to roll a d10, and it's a 10, which is, well, pretty much as bad as you can be. So in this case, had it rolled a 2 or less, that is our current toughness, so then we would not have taken a wound. So if it rolled a 2 or 1 or 2, we would not have taken a wound, but it rolled a 10, which is obviously higher, so we're going to go ahead and take a wound, which I didn't put my wound marker here. We're just going to use a placeholder for right now, and I'm going to adjust my health down by 1. And then from there, we're going to go to the next step is the minion's move. So this minion's going to move into that home area here. And I forgot on my turn, I'm going to go ahead and put this ambush down. This is something I did on my turn before. And then it moves into the home area, and boom. Okay, let's go to the next round, basically. We're going to minions move. All these minions are going to effectively move. So we're going to put a spawn token in this area. Basically, these hordes are going to slowly move. So as well as this guy moving here, we are going to move a spawn area. What that means is you move each of one of these tokens, but because of the fact that doing that really has no real effect, you can always just put a new token out. But effectively, you're moving all those tokens by 1, and as soon as this enters my area, it will again be revealed. And so we'll roll those pairs, and we re-rolled another single lower level pair. So that's what we have over here. At this point, the special forces are going to ambush them. So we're going to roll 1d8 because we have 1 card over here. So we're going to roll a single d8. If I have one over here, do I have a d8? I don't know where my d8 are. For the sake of, let me see, 1 second. Here we go. So we have a d8. And we rolled a 5, which is enough to kill even this one, because 5 is higher than 3. So this guy's dead over here. And that is 1 round. And let's go through like 1 or 2 more rounds, and then we'll take it from there. So we're going to go to the next round. New team captain, new recruit. We can't recruit because we're not in the starting area, unfortunately. But I do have an ability. Naomi has an ability where she can move doing the team action phase. So she's going to choose to move 1. So she has a little more flexibility of what's happening here. So now she can recruit. And she's going to roll a 1. So I'm not going to spend any courage there. By the way, I would have gotten a courage when I defeated the monster. In general, every time you defeat a demon, you get a courage. I rolled a default 1, so I'm going to just take a regular patrol over here. And then from there, I'm not going to buy a gift because I don't have enough courage to do so. And let's move into the hero action phase. So in this time, I'm going to start with an attack against this guy because I would really like to kill him. So I'm going to roll my d6. And I got a 4, which is perfect. That's exactly what we need to kill him. We will take 1 courage. And then do I want to move? I don't know if I want to move because this guy will attack me if I move. So I think I'm actually going to stay present where I am, not reveal any forces this round, and we'll call that a day. I will set an ambush so that when that guy moves, he is attacked by this card. And then we go along, and perfect, up to the enemy phase. Despair would cycle, and Despair advances based on the number of players in the game, so at this point we'd only be up to Despair because I'm playing a 1-player game, so it gives you more time to power up effectively. It scales with the volume of players in the game. Then we're going to go to the minions attack, which there's no one for the minions to attack over here. Then the minions are going to move, and then from there we're going to ambush, so we're going to roll a single d6 against that. And perfect, that's dead. And whenever an ambush kills a demon, we put a courage in the courage pool up there. That's common courage to be spent. In a 1-player game, it's semantically no different as if you're playing a single character, but that's a common pool of courage. From there, we're going to go to the next round. So we're going to go to team action, recruit. I can recruit. And I'm going to roll a 1 again. Okay, so that's good and bad. It's bad because it's the lowest number. It's good because you can only have 1 type of each card present in an area, so at least this way I'll be able to put that down. I chose not to move, I can't, I'm not going to move during the team captain phase. Oh, I forgot actually. I forgot to advance one of these, which these would have advanced the token here, so we would be spawning new forces over here. And we spawned 2 sets. Okay, so that's not as good. We spawned 2 sets. So that's going to be, because, again, every set will generate one of these lower level guys, and we're going to have that, and they're all in that area. I forgot to move that token last round. And then from there, we move to the action phase. So that's not great. Oh, these ones would have been attacked. So I apologize, I'm doing a bit of things out of sequence, but this one would have been attacked with a d8, and it's a 2, which would have been enough to kill this, and put that in the phase over there. Let's finish the round over here, and we'll go through the full round, and then we'll call it a day. And so once more, we have our action phase. We can move, we can attack, and we can set an ambush. I'm going to go ahead and set an ambush. It's worth noting these ambushes can be used to soak up hits as well. If you have them in patrol, or if they're in your region, they can soak up hits so that you don't die. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm a little hesitant to move, but I think I kind of have to, because otherwise these are just going to be too powerful. I don't know what to do there. Do I want to move? Let's go ahead, and they're just going to be too powerful. You know, let's go ahead and move, and I'll explain why I'll do that shortly. So we're going to move, and let's go ahead and attack. So we're going to attack with our single d6 because we haven't leveled up. We got a 5. Now, this fiend over here, unfortunately, requires a 7, which means it's going to be pretty hard to kill that guy, which is a more complicated discussion we'll have later. But we're going to spend our 5, so we rolled a 5, and we're going to take out this guy, adding a courage to our pool. Okay, then that basically ends our turn because we already set our ambush, we already moved, we already attacked, and now it goes to the enemy phase. Despair would increase, the minions would attack. So both these minions are going to attack us. This one rolls a d6, this one rolls 2d10, which is, well, not great, obviously. So let's go ahead and roll the d6 against us. We got a 2, which means we do not take any wounds. That's excellent. And we got 2 d10s, and we got a 7 and a 9. Now, just for the sake of explaining how this works, I can either take 2 wounds, or I can sacrifice this ambush because it has 3 health. A single wound against any troop will kill it, but I'm going to assign both these wounds to this troop, killing it so that I do not take any damage, which, by the way, I probably wouldn't do strategically. Lastly, the minions are going to, the minions have attacked, the minions are going to move, and we're going to move another token along over here, which means we roll these 4 dice, and we spawn another. That would be a 3rd level demon, but we don't actually have it, so we spawn these over here. And then that ambush is going to get a die rolled. It's going to be 1d6 against it, which is not enough to kill this even on the highest level. And that's basically it. Next round, if that enters the main homeland, or whatever you want to call it, the main city, then it will accelerate our Doom Track. One of the ways you lose is the Doom Track hitting 13. The Doom Track will most commonly accelerate whenever enemy units enter your area. And as additionally, whenever a hero dies, you will accelerate the Doom Track by 2. And that is basically the sequencing of a few turns in Planet Apocalypse. It's basically a lot of rolling dice, moving around, upgrading your character, slowly upgrading a bit of the map with tower defense, and hopefully powering yourself and your teammates up before the demons continuously power themselves up, so that you can eventually get into a giant boss fight with this giant lord dude, and hopefully win the game. And with that, let's go into my review. And so that's basically it. That is basically the sequencing of a few turns of Planet Apocalypse. You didn't get to see a lot about the upgrading because you need to build up a lot more courage to do so, but the basic sequencing in this game is move around, kill bad guys, acquire courage, use that courage to level up your characters, also throughout the game level up your ambushes throughout these areas. It plays well with I'm getting to my pros and cons, so I guess let's jump into my pros and cons. So to begin with, like I just said, it plays well solo and multiplayer. This is a game that I haven't played it with more than 2 players. I played it with 1 and 2 players, and I enjoy it both solo as well as multiplayer, as well as 2 players. I will say doing this playthrough was the first time I tried playing with a single character solo, and that, I mean, even just this sequencing didn't give me as many options. I like the fact that when you have more characters, you can more carefully plan about targeting a single area, because you can move 2 people together to try to wipe out an area, because one of the big things in this game you want to avoid is you want to take out demons, but you want to avoid being there when the demons hit back, because when the demons hit back, they roll a lot more dice and a lot bigger dice than you do, and so having a few players, even possibly 3 or 4 or whatnot, gives you a lot more options to condense your fire and keep those demons under some form of crowd control effectively. But it does play well solo and multiplayer, but again, I'd recommend controlling multiple characters. The game is easy to teach. It's really easy to teach the general sequencing. You will obviously need one player there who knows more about how the game plays. Like, one thing we didn't even cover doing the playthrough is hell time. There's this concept in the game called hell time when you're defeating this final lord, where you take everyone off the board, move them onto their own sideboard, and engage in a battle until you kind of walk away. You can't really heal in hell time, so it changes the whole pattern of the game, but the goal of it is that you level up enough that you can damage the lord or potentially take him out entirely doing hell time. And that's a whole different sequence, but you don't need to teach anyone that to start them off. All you need to do is teach them the basic sequencing of a few turns, the basic consequences of the actions of, as the despair track cycles, you'll add more people to the game. You will need someone who has actually read the 25 pages of rules or whatnot, because there are a lot of side things that are worth knowing, but in terms of getting others up and running, easy to teach, easy to jump straight into. You teach them like 5 minutes of basic rules, basic mechanics, and then they're up and moving, rolling dice, and slaughtering hordes of demons. Speaking of which, I don't know if it's speaking of which, but another pro is the difficulty scales fairly well. There are a few tips and tricks in the rulebook as far as how to adjust the scaling if you really need to. I would encourage anyone who's feeling overwhelmed to understand, before you adjust the difficulty rating, understand that first of all, play an actual full game. Don't just like sit there and say, oh no, we're being overwhelmed, because it will feel that way at different points, but it's not necessarily the end of the world. And the second thing worth noting is death is not the end in this game. Dying is not how you lose. The doom track is one of the ways you lose. And so, I mean, additionally, the Lord ending up in your final area will also be a way you lose. So dying in this game might feel like, how can anyone possibly win? But as long as you're controlling that doom track, as long as you're leveling up faster than the doom track is accelerating, it's actually not that bad if you die. And having a few people that you can't control wander into your area, again, not the end of the world. You want to be focused on the big picture here and not the individual casualties, so to speak, along the way. And those are just notes worth noting before you attempt to scale the difficulty. Because if you attempt to scale the difficulty too early, you'll actually find that the game is too easy, so you want to balance that a bit. The game, I think it has a good starting difficulty level, but with small tweaks you can make in either direction to, well, improve upon that. Additionally, the components. The components are definitely a pro-ish, and we'll come to that during the cons, but these miniatures, I mean, I didn't really do any good camera shots of these miniatures, but these miniatures are gigantic hordes of plastic, lots of cool minis in this game. The demon, while I'm not personally a fan of the starting demon, if you go through some of the expansions have a lot of demons that will, you know, they actually look pretty interesting, pretty cool, a lot more sculptures and shapes that aren't just a dead goat in a wall. I don't really know what's up with that one, but nonetheless, lots of cool components. The insert is excellent, although if you get a bunch of expansions, you may want to consolidate it, so it may be a waste of space in that sense, but at least for the starting base game, the insert is excellent. And lastly, my final thing that I really like about this game, and this is the biggest thing, which is why I'm saving it for last, is powers and upgrades. If you watch my content at all, you know that I love powers in games. I love upgrading, I love powers, I love abilities. That's one of the reasons that I like dungeon crawlers as a genre in general. I mean, this isn't a dungeon crawler per se, but it has elements to it. But I just like the concept of leveling up a character. Whether it's more of a Euro game that like Gloomhaven, where it's all about the tactical aspects of the gameplay, or whether it's more of just a Cthulhu Death May Die, rolling a bunch of dice and leveling up your characters. I don't care if it's more tactical or more dice rolling, I just like abilities. I like the fact that in this game, every time you level up, you take a card from the gifts track, and you not only get the gift, but you also put it on one of your powers. So you basically get a 2-for-1. You get 2 benefits at once, and you combine these into slowly leveling up your character, who already comes with a starting benefit, and already comes with a starting, well, not benefit, but detractor, a curse effectively. So there's a lot of powers, upgrades, and abilities in this game, and that is something that I generally love in all games. And there's a lot of characters to go along with that. So the base game will come with its own characters, but you can get expansion after expansion, adding more and more characters, more and more gifts, just tons and tons of fun things to add to the game, and that to me is the biggest promise of Planet Apocalypse as someone who likes powers and abilities. Which brings us to the cons, the things I didn't like, what I did not like about Planet Apocalypse, and the biggest one really is going to be the theme, art, and minis. I don't mind horror. I love Cthulhu Death May Die. While I don't own the others, I don't mind the tentacly creatures or whatnot. I can't define what it is about Planet Apocalypse that I don't like the art, miniatures, and gore presented here, where I do like it in games like Hate, in games like Machina Arcana, and other games. There are many other games in which I like that horror theme. But in even Cthulhu Wars by Peterson Games, I like the miniatures and the horror and the art in that game. Something about the theme of Planet Apocalypse and the art of the board and cards and characters and the miniatures just doesn't do it for me. Now, it's not bad, to be very clear, it's just not to my personal style. It's something that, unfortunately, not only does it not pull me into this game, not only am I looking at this game going, I want to like it so much because of the components, it's really kind of the reverse. It's more of a, I want to like the game from the mechanics, but the art is taking me out of it when compared to other games. And that's my first, what I personally didn't like. And then secondly, what I didn't like is, while I love the process of leveling up, I find the back and forth of running back to your base, getting some ambushes, placing them out, going back and forth, killing miniatures. I find the actual process a little more tedious than I would like in the feeling it gives me, even though I'm leveling up. So I like the overall conclusion of what's happening, but the back and forth feels a little too vanilla. It feels a little too tedious, a little too scripted, not enough interesting decisions to be made along the way. There are tactics, to be clear. There are definitely decisions, especially when you're playing with more players. There are going to be tactics as how you combine and how you sit there and balance the risk-reward of ending up in a single area with a bunch of demons to potentially take them out. There are definitely decisions. But the overall process is a little too scripted of back and forth, grab some dice, trade in courage, back and forth, grab some dice, trade some courage. It's good, it's okay, but it just feels a little too tedious, a little too scripted for what I'm looking for. As far as things that other people might not like but didn't bother me, what others might not like about this game is, first of all, the cards as militia. Having all these cards effectively acting as your tower defense game in a game that is all about giant miniatures, to not have miniatures as your tower defense, I feel that that could have been better. I would have rather had, little, I don't know, little molds of, I don't know, policemen or strongholds or something on the board to represent that. It didn't bother me that much because, like I said already, I'm actually not pulled in by the miniatures in this game. So for me personally, having the cards didn't really bother me because I unlike a game where I love the miniatures, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, that was such a waste, such an opportunity. Rather, it was, it's okay. I don't really mind either way, and the cards are practical. They have information on them, so that is practical, but I can certainly see others being annoyed by a giant hoard of plastic and your tower defense aspect of the game is all dumbed down to a bunch of cards, which is, again, fine, but could be a problem for others. I also don't like the fact that there is, or what others might not like, is there's less variability in this game until you get to expansions. Now, for me, that's usually not as much of a problem because once I like a game, I tend to go all in on it. Once I like a game, I tend to just get everything anyways. And sure, it's not necessarily fun, but I understand the price point of this game. I understand why tons of miniatures filled with plastic, gigantic miniatures. I mean, these things are ridiculous. I understand why that would add to the cost of the game. And so for me, I would just get all the extras. But for sure, someone looking at this game and seeing a $70 price tag on it, and then additionally have to spend another $30 per game to get more of the stuff, I can certainly see others being annoyed and frustrated about the cost or the barrier to entry on the table to actually get a decent experience of Planet Apocalypse. And you don't need everything. Absolutely not. You do not need everything. But I would say if you're really going to get this game, it's probably not worth diving into unless you're getting the game in at least 1 or 2 expansions, just to introduce some basic variability, even if just the lore, to mix up the lords you can play with. So I think when you're budgeting for this game, don't think of it as a $70 game. Think of it as $120 or so or whatnot. Basically, the base game plus 2 expansions should give you a decent amount of content to round out your experience, but that definitely is something to take into account, to be mindful of in this game. And lastly, again, not a problem for me, but could be a problem for others, this game is a table hog. It's an absolute table hog. Right now, this is a 1-player setup on my smaller table. This is not my big table, which is why it's not a problem for me, because I have a bigger table. But on my smaller table over here, everything is crowded onto the space. We have room for 1 person. The gifts track is overlaying the board. We don't even have room for another character, and things are kind of all around the side here. This game is very much a table hog. The way the maps are presented, don't get me wrong, you're going to have no one complaining. In, Cthulhu Death May Die, people complain, but you're trying to fit these giant hordes of miniatures onto a tiny space. And sometimes this is why, because sometimes your options are trying to just make everything work when it doesn't, or being faced with a potential table hog. And Planet Apocalypse takes the table hog route. Cthulhu Death May Die takes the, we're going to have 15 minis on a box that's this size. So either way, it's a sacrifice. In this case, that sacrifice is the amount of table space you need to play this game well can be a factor. And so that's basically what I liked, what I didn't like, and what I can see being a problem for others. As far as my final thoughts are conflicted. That's the best way I can put it. I like Planet Apocalypse. I like the leveling up. I like the system it's providing. For me, at the end of the day, I'm not keeping this game. But keep in mind, I say that as someone who just a few days ago was still on the fence and still temporarily backed a $666 pledge in the current Kickstarter to get everything. And I was like, well, I want it all. I do want this game. I like the journey it's offering. I want more of this game. So understand that even though for me I'm not keeping this game, I am still tempted enough to debate spending $666 to get everything. Which is crazy, but again, that's just to give you context as to where my headspace is around this game. In the end, I decided to cancel that pledge. In the end, as much as I am pulled in by the fun leveling up of Planet Apocalypse, as much as that pulls me in, I find myself comparing it to other games that don't have the flaws that this one does to me personally. And again, one of those is theme. So if theme isn't an issue for you, if the theme, art, and miniatures you like, then already one of my bigger cons, one of my bigger reasons for not keeping this game is off the table. And the last one is the grind aspect. So I find myself comparing it to Zombicide Black Plague a lot, one of my favorite games in this genre. And for me, Zombicide Black Plague 100% has that grind too. It has that same sequence of a basic grind while you level up, you go through the motions, you get more powerful, and then eventually you take out hordes of zombies. But in Zombicide Black Plague, I was trying to think why I wanted Zombicide Black Plague but not Planet Apocalypse, and the answer for me was that it's more disguised in Black Plague. Because of the fact that you have a larger board, there's more moving around, there are more decisions to be made in that space. So the grind is still there, the tediousness is still there, but it is more disguised. It's, again, 100% there, but it's not as evident as you are playing it, and that, I think, is a better experience for me. Versus in Planet Apocalypse, the constant back and forth on the same exact track ends up being a little bit more evident that it's just going through the motions while you level up. Again, overall, I really like Planet Apocalypse. If you are intrigued by this game, keep in mind it is rated highly in general across the board. I myself like it a lot and debated spending a lot more money on this game. For myself, in the end of the day, it is just facing a lot of other games in this space on my shelf, a lot of other miniature heavy games, and at the end of the day, we all have to make hard decisions about the games we keep on our shelves and the time we dedicate to different games. And for me, I think Planet Apocalypse is an excellent game, but one that did not personally make the cut. I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you found it in some way helpful to figure out whether this is a game for you. If you like powers and abilities, it's fun. If you like the theme, then that's one thing that for me was a big con. If you like the leveling up, the characters, all the characters are fun. I want to play every single character. Again, I just like powers and abilities. I don't know what to tell you. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good one.